This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
There are still places to go, people to see, and adventures ahead. Azure Well creates vitamins and supplements focused on purity, potency, and consistency for people who want to make the most of every season of life. Every formula is lab-tested and designed for everyday wellness. If quality matters to you, compare what's in your cabinet to Azure Well. Visit AzureLivingWell.com. That's AZURE livingwell.com. These products have not been evaluated by the FDA and are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Swift Kicking Ass Podcast, Episode 15.
Welcome to a Swift Kicking the Ass podcast, hosted by lifelong friends Tom Stewart and John Curren. Today's episode is a special feature covering Robert Greene's 48 Laws of Power.
Welcome, I'm Tom Stewart, and I'm joined with my lifelong friend, John Curren. And once again, we're continuing our series on Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power. Today, we're going to talk about Law 9, win through your actions, never through argument. The judgment is any momentary triumph you think you have gained through argument is really a Pyrrhic victory. The resentment and ill will you stir up is stronger and lasts longer than any momentary change of opinion. It is much more powerful to get others to agree with you through your actions without saying a word. Demonstrate, do not explicate. And before I throw it to John, we were just discussing the word Pyrrhic. He had to look it up, and he said it was that winning is just as devastating for the victor as it is for the loser. And I threw back at him. I said, yeah, it's like arguing with your wife. And I mean, really, if you win that argument, yeah, you might have won the glory for a second, but really you've done more damage and you'll pay for it in the long run. John?
Yeah, I have that same situation in my marriage as well. And if you really think about the meaning of that word, I mean, it goes way beyond marriage. It goes into many different aspects of your life. Think about all the times you've argued at work. You can try to change people's opinions, but at the end, you can wear them down and you can get them to agree. But most of the time, they're just tired of arguing, so they give in. There's no long-term change.
Right. You know, Stephen Covey, the 7 Habits, author of highly effective people. One of the things he talks about is the emotional bank account. And that's one of those things I think that would drain your emotional bank account, where you don't have, you think you're winning, but you're actually taking out from your relationship with that person. Yeah,
I agree. There are a lot of really good quotes in this chapter, and I wrote down one of them. We all believe we are masters in the realm of opinions and reasoning. Learn to demonstrate the correctness of your ideas indirectly. So what I get from that is it's better to have someone think that they came up with the idea rather than trying to argue with them and change their opinion and get them to look at something differently. It's better if you reach that conclusion on your own. I think that's the trick to a successful marriage is to, let your spouse come up with the idea, even though it was your idea. Let her take credit.
Oh, so let her think it was your idea. Man, you better hope that your wife doesn't listen to this podcast.
Yeah, yours too, buddy.
Transgression of the law.
That was a transgression of the law. So you want to talk about the story, John, that we're about this, was it in 131 BC, the Roman consul Publius Crassus Dives Mucianus. I'm sure I just slaughtered that, but I'm glad my name's not Publicus. Publius? Is that his name? And Dives. It's like a middle name, And then Mucianus, like mucus. Well, anyways, this guy was laying siege to a Greek town of Pergamos. I'm slaughtering his words.
We butcher these words. We apologize.
He found himself in the need of a battering ram, which you always do when you're invading some town. You have to break through the walls. And so he sends back some word with his soldiers because he knew that he had already destroyed some other Athens ship mast or something like that. And he had a bunch of these masts from ships laying around. And he said, hey, I want one of these big masts. And then I'm going to use that with my soldiers and ram right through the walls of this town, and it'll be mine. So he sends word back to his engineer, says, hey, give the mast to the soldiers and send it to me right away. And what's the engineer do, John?
The engineer says, I think it would be much better if you use this shorter mast, because if you look at the physics of what you're trying to do, I know exactly what you're trying to do, and this smaller mast will work better for you.
Right. So
he get the job done.
So he argues, which is a transgression of the law. And because you're arguing with soldiers who don't want to hear it, they're just like, hey, I have an order. I'm supposed to bring the big one. I don't care what your philosophy is or the science behind it. The big guy wants the big one. And I would suggest you don't argue with them, because things usually don't work out well when you argue with this guy. But what's the engineer do?
Well, he says, I think you should take the smaller mast. You're going to be justly rewarded for it. And because I am the expert, and I hate to say it, but that bigger mast is just not going to work for you.
Right.
So take this and everything is going to be great. The sun is going to be shining for you. You're going to be rewarded greatly.
Right. And then again, they say, no, we want the big one. So he tells them that we're going to give you the larger mast. And, what's he do? Just like, I don't want to make a crude joke, but he slips them the little one. It arrives and the guy is like, hey, what where's the big one? This is not going to be adequate enough. The soldiers are like, hey man, that guy told us that he was going to send us the big one. And, I'm sorry, he disobeyed you. So, he was pissed off, and he sends.
So we did give him the big one.
Yeah. Yeah. So he says, hey, I want you to bring me this engineer. I want to talk to this guy. It's like the mob boss, come on, I'm going to find out what's going on with this guy. So of course this guy thinks, oh yeah, they're going to be so happy when they get this small one that they're going to, say I did such a good job and that I was right. But
Mucinous. I know I'm butchering his name, but the commander, when he gets the smaller mast, he is just livid by this, that someone would, not follow his orders. So he could not concentrate on the siege, and he was just fixating, on how this engineer broke rank and I guess was subordinate.
And you don't screw with a guy named Publius. He's already pissed off about his name, so he's going to be a little ornery.
Well, it's Publius Crassus Dives Mucanus.
Yeah, so that's a mouthful.
I don't know him by his first name, so I just call him by his last.
I mean, he's got. It seems like pubic, crass, dives, and mucus. It's all words that, in our language just do not translate well.
Well, it didn't translate either very well for the engineer, because what'd he do? What did Mucius do when the engineer broke ranks?
Oh, what did he do? They flogged him and basically killed him. Right? I mean, they
flogged him until he died.
Right. He actually listened. I think he was like, yeah, tell me your reasoning. Let me hear it. And the guy, the engineer went to elaborate. Well, see, at this speed, it's lighter to carry and your soldiers will be able to break down with this velocity. And he just sat there and listened. And at the end, he was like, very interesting. Kill him.
Yeah. And if if anyone out there listening has a boss, we all face this from time to time. The worker bees in an organization generally know what is going on, and I think good leadership listens to the worker bees and the experts and gets opinion. But at the end of the day, it really is the boss's decision on what goes forward. And I know from my own experience, I've come very close to being insubordinate. And I guess I don't work very well within bureaucracies, which is why I no longer work for the government. But it's we're all faced with this, I think, in a day-to-day basis. And at the end, it just does not pay to argue, especially with your boss or with leadership or people higher up. I think also the customer always is right, and that oftentimes we're sold things because we tell whoever we're buying from, this is what we want, and we're very specific, and this is what we want. Well, we're not asking for their opinion. If we did, the expert might come back and tell us something very different and probably save us a lot of money and time and aggravation, but we bring the product back home, it doesn't work right, we get very aggravated, we've wasted a lot of money, and we're livid, we're filled with rage. And I think it happens quite a lot to a lot of people. So it does not pay to argue.
I understand this because I am an engineer, and lots of times in my job and day to day, we have things that happen that someone that does not have the skills or the knowledge or all the things that it takes to understand what it takes to maybe move a studio or to create something from a room that is not meant to be a studio. So we have people that are basically, salespeople coming up with the ideas. However, if we sit there and argue, like you said, it's not going to work for us. And in the end, it's better just to say, okay, you know what, we'll do whatever they want. If it doesn't work, then that's demonstrating that, hey, it didn't work, but we follow orders instead of arguing, because it just gets nasty when you start arguing, and you always end up looking like a bad guy.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I said there were a lot of good quotes in this chapter, and here's one. Understand this: words are a dime a dozen. Everyone knows that in the heat of an argument, we will all say anything to support our cause. We will quote the Bible, refer to unverifiable statistics. Who can be persuaded by bags of air like that? Action and demonstration are much more powerful and meaningful. They are there before our eyes for us to see. And, it ends with, the truth is generally seen, rarely heard. And since I've been reading this chapter, it has really changed my outlook and how I communicate with people. I tend to walk away from arguments because I think, well, what am I really gaining by arguing this point? And I think that's a good approach to this law, and how to apply it is to think, what is to be gained by arguing this?
Not much. And you know how engineers, I was talking about how wise we are. You know what I did is when I pressed record, I pressed it twice by accident and I paused it. So the first part of our episode was not recorded, but I am an engineer and I do have backups, so the listeners will never really know. The audio quality might just be a little lighter this time because we'll have to download it from YouTube. That's cool. Always have backups.
Well, you know your business, and that's why I listen to you.
So that probably brings us into the observance of the law, right? With the story with Michelangelo. And if I was quick with my fingers, I would hit
observance of the law.
You like that, right?
Yeah.
So in 1502 in Florence, Italy, an enormous block of marble stood in the works department of the Church of Santa Maria del Fiore. And it was once a magnificent piece of raw stone, but some unskilled sculptor had bored a hole right in the middle of it. And they were like, oh man, this thing's ruined. No one's going to be able to save this. So the mayor of the town was like, hey, this was a very expensive piece of block of marble. Is there anything we can do to salvage it? Can we hire Leonardo da Vinci or some other great master? And no, everyone agreed. There's nothing you can do. So one of the guys that was there at the church decided to call his friend, which would happen to be Michelangelo. And Michelangelo looked at it and said, yeah, I can work with it. And that block of marble eventually became the statue of David. Just a way that he posed the legs rather than being like the typical, Roman statue that's all muscular and standing in a static pose. He made him lean into the side a little bit and was able to finagle a beautiful piece of work. However, the mayor, upon coming and seeing this statue, looked at it and goes, hey, you know what? You did a really good job. However, the nose is too big. And Michelangelo was like, you know what? I'm not going to argue with this guy. This guy has no idea what he's talking about. So what's he do? He goes, tell you what, go stand over in a different aisle, because he knew if he had a different perspective, it would look a little bit better. So he goes, come follow me on the scaffolding. He had him get a different perspective, and Michelangelo secretly picked up some dust and a chisel, and he started pretending he was chiseling at the nose to make it better. And then he let the dust slowly fall from his hand, and he looked over and he asked the mayor, he goes, how about now? And the guy looked at it and goes, perfect, you've brought it alive. So he didn't argue. He didn't do anything to change it. He just changed his perspective.
Yeah, I would argue with you that it was not the statue of David, but a young David with sling in hand.
Uh-oh.
But I know that it's not good to argue with you, so I won't argue. If you want to think it's David, that's fine.
There you go. I was wrong. This reminds me of my friend and mentor Ernesto, who has dearly departed many years ago. One of his tricks was we used to get the receptionist call us and say, hey, I'm very cold. And it was like, we really had nothing to do with the air conditioning in the building. But for some reason they thought, a broadcast engineer must be like a maintenance engineer, which we were not. But, it's like, okay, he'd go, oh, madam, he goes, hold on 1 second and let me adjust the air. And he'd pretend he's turning a knob, and he goes, how's it feel now? And she'd be like, oh, thank you, Ernesto, much better. And he didn't do anything. He just made them believe that he did.
Yeah, when I first met my wife, I pretended that I needed to get napkins from a napkin dispenser.
Huh?
Just because I wanted to meet her.
Oh, I gotcha. I was a little confused. I was like, what do you do with napkins?
So I was just looking a little bit deeper into why she kept calling Ernesto. I maybe she liked Ernesto.
Well,
and
my friend, remember Benito, right?
Of course.
All right. So Benito's kind of like a George Costanza, if you ever watch Seinfeld. He's just one of those, not a born loser, but he just has he used to say he had a black cloud following him around. But he used to like this girl. She was really pretty, and she worked at the drugstore. So he would go in every day and buy deodorant and soap and everything just so he could talk to her. And he probably spent $1,500, man. He eventually got the date, but it was just funny that he would even, conveniently break down, like his car would break down in front of her house, and he'd have to fix her tire. Just blatantly obvious stuff. But I guess he was so stupid that she maybe felt sorry for him and actually thought it was funny or cute or whatever, and they ended up dating for several years.
So was this the girl that he bought the spray paint for the hair?
Yeah.
Remember that, where you'd buy spray paint and you'd paint your scalp and it would look like you had a full head of hair.
Yes, that is the one, and I have some funny stories about that. He would one time he was in the water. He was swimming in the pool with her, and she was like, "Are you wearing makeup?" And he's like, "No, why?" Because it was all running down like mascara. And another time,
down his forehead.
Yep. Another time after he had broke up with her, I was actually out with Jennifer, my wife, and before we got married, and she brought one of her friends. We went down to South Beach and we were dancing. It was happened to be New Year's, and I see him over on a dance floor, and he's dancing with the girl, and he's like pinching her nose, like wiggling her nose. I'm like, what's he doing, man? That's kind of weird. And what it was is she had been, they had been kind of kissing and stuff like that, and her nose got on his head somehow, and she had a big black spot on her nose. So he was grabbing her nose and wiggling it, going, "Oh, aren't you so cute?" Trying to rub it off. This is the same guy that we were driving. He used to have a palmetto bug or a roach infested car. And in Florida, palmetto bugs are huge. I mean, they're the big, huge cockroach. They're just nasty. They fly. And they're nasty, and they can even bite. But so he's dating. He takes this girl out on a first date, and he's driving down the street with her, and he looks over, and there's a palmetto bug on her shoulder. And he's never kissed her before. He's first date. They're on their way to the movie, and he goes, "Oh my God!" Like if she sees that, she's gonna flip. So he stops at a red light. He leans over and gives her a big kiss. And she's like, "What?" He just went with it. And at the same time, he reached over and grabbed the palmetto bug off her shoulder and just squeezed it and crushed it, and then kind of like wiped it on the seat behind her.
Oh my gosh.
Good times.
I have some palmetto bug stories that I could tell, but I think I'll wait on that.
Good times.
So the keys to power here is I think I touched upon one is to look at what's to be gained from arguing. And if you're not going to gain anything, it's best to walk away. I mean, I think also I can think of a number of times where I've argued the point, and it's just made life worse for me. It didn't make anything better. It may seem like you're going to win the argument, but in the process, you create hostility, resentment. It does not smooth things over. And even if you're right, and you're right, sometimes it's best to just be the bigger person, let it go, because it's just not worth it.
And as Yoda says, fear leads to anger, and anger leads to hate, and hate leads to suffering. So don't hold in your anger.
So there's another really good story in this chapter about Sir Christopher Wren, who had mastered the sciences of mathematics, astronomy, physics, and physiology. And he had a very long career as being England's most celebrated architect. And he was working on a town hall for the city of Westminster, and the mayor was not satisfied with the work. And in fact, the mayor was quite nervous about the design of the work, and was afraid that the second floor was not secure and it was going to collapse. So the mayor demanded that Wren added 2 stone columns for extra support. So Wren knew that these columns weren't going to serve any purpose at all, and that the mayor's fears were baseless. But he built them and installed them. And it wasn't until many years later where workmen on a high scaffold noticed that the columns stopped just short of the ceiling. So he gave the customer what he wanted, but he did it also proving his point that the second floor was very secure.
Yeah, I guess if it would have fallen, maybe it would have caught it, kind of. But I don't know. Maybe it would have just crumbled and went around it.
So it says, the power of demonstrating your idea is that your opponents do not get defensive, and therefore are more open to persuasion, making them, literally and physically feeling your meaning is indefinitely more powerful than argument. So, I know that in my own line of work, there have been times where I've disagreed with my boss, and I generally do speak up. I feel it's a responsibility of mine to share my expertise. So I do that. But I also have a respect for hierarchy, and that my boss is, or any one of my bosses has the ultimate responsibility. So it's always going to be their call. So if they agree, great. If they don't, I just let it go. And generally, it's very vindicating when you come back and you're coming back to the same issue, and a year later, they decide, oh, well, you know what didn't work before, we're going to try this now, and it was your idea. And it feels great.
Even though you want to say, I told you so, but you don't.
You're absolutely right, because I've been getting paid for the last year.
It's funny. We had some phone technicians in the other day, and I was kind enough and went and got all the information they needed to do to make some changes. Right. So the phone guy he goes over to some girl's desk and he says, well, I don't understand. This was working. Oh, it was working until you gave me these changes. And here, it's because you gave me these changes. It's wrong. Right. So he gets down on the floor and he starts reading all the numbers. I didn't argue with him. I was like, I knew I was right. I had all the proper information that he needed, but he screwed up. And once he started, I had everything written down. So they have like these little areas, like little boxes where it has like a V next to the telephone. So it'll say V29, right? And he looks down and he's ready to read it off. And it's the same thing that he has in a sheet of paper. So he's writing, he's copying all the same information that I have just given him. And he looks at it and he's like, oh, but he doesn't say sorry or, you know what, you're right. He just kind of sees it and realizes that he was completely wrong. And then he jumped the gun and blaming me.
Yeah, what's so interesting? I mean, what you said about people not saying I'm sorry. I think saying I'm sorry are some of the most powerful words known to man. And for some reason, so many of us don't say I'm sorry.
No, you should. You should be a stand-up person and admit when you're wrong. And I think it disarms people and gives you more credibility and, builds your character when you do that.
Yeah, I mean, let's just face it. We all make mistakes. We can all have, we can think about things in a wrong way, or perhaps not look at it as broadly or from some perspective that the other person may or may have. So saying you're sorry is I think, a very great strength. And as you said, I agree with you, Tommy. It's disarming.
Reversal of the law.
Let me do that again.
Reversal of the law.
There's only one reversal here, right? And they always take those laws and they say there's always an exception, which is the reversal of the law. And they say verbal argument has one vital use in this realm of power. It's to distract and cover your tracks when you are practicing deception or are caught in a lie. So if you get caught in a lie, you're supposed to argue. And in such cases, it's to your advantage to argue with all your conviction you can muster. Draw the other person into an argument to distract them from your deceptive move. When caught in a lie, the more emotional and certain you appear, the less likely it seems you are lying. This reminds me of that song. I think it was in the 80s or 90s where they just denied everything. You know what song I'm talking about? It was like a rap song.
Fan.
Oh God,
the 80s is kind of a blur for me, Tom.
It will come to me. But basically, it was just saying deny everything that happens. It was basically a guy that was cheating on his wife or his girlfriend or whatever like that, and she caught him, and he just denied it. Just no matter what proof she has, nope, I didn't do it. And that's it's not the right thing to do, but that's the law of the power. Any other observations about this?
I'm looking through. I think that's it.
I think that's a good rundown on this law.
Yeah. Well, here I do have some more notes actually.
Okay.
When you're thinking about arguing, think about the long-term effect that you're going to have by that arguing. Like we said earlier, you can argue with someone, they may concede, but you're going to have a very resentful person, or you're going to get them angry, maybe not outwardly angry at you, but there will be a long-term effect. Or winning that argument with your wife, there's definitely going to be a long-term effect by that. But
that's one of those games where you can't win, man. In fact, there's a radio show down here that does a show. It's called "You Can't Win," and that's one of those that's the same situation. You can't win.
But as I was thinking more about this, I was thinking about how many of us argue with ourselves. They say that when there is something that you need to do and you keep resisting it, you keep fighting it, you're basically arguing with yourself, that you don't begin to change and make positive changes in your life until you say, you know what, you stop resisting and you move in that direction, and doors open up, and you stop arguing with yourself, and you say, oh, I don't really want to do that. And you after many years, you just give up and you say, okay, I'm going to do this, and everything else falls into line once you do.
All right, so I'm gonna do something which is not the favorite thing I want to do, but one of the things we talk about accountability, and I feel that maybe I need some accountability because I've been falling down on my training and eating right, and I'm starting to get a little plump around the middle, right? So I'm going to have you hold me accountable, but I'm also going to do it. I'm going to prove something live on the podcast, so our listeners will understand that we believe in our philosophies as far as holding accountability, right? So I'm going to measure my gut right now. I'm going to tell you how fat I've gotten, and then a couple weeks from now, I'll do it again and see if I've made any progress or if I've just got fatter.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So I don't know if here. I'll do it, and it's not going to be beautiful,
Tom.
Yeah, it's not going to be beautiful for the cameras. John's watching the hangout, so bear with me. I
think you need to go down a little bit more. There we go.
Right there. Here, so around 37. If I flex, maybe 37 and a half. That's fat, man. That's fat for me. I wear like size 34 jeans, and but they fit a little lower on the hips, so you can get away with it. And so I'm gonna straighten up my eating and train jujitsu a little bit more, and maybe start lifting some weights and try to get that down a little bit.
Well, I'm not going to argue with you, Tommy, but I think what is to be gained by this is maybe some weight.
So I'm going to get rid of the bags of Tostitos, and you know what's been killing me is we've just gone through a slew of birthdays. My mom's birthday, my wife's birthday, my daughter's birthday, my sister-in-law's birthday. And what happens is we go to all these parties, and it interferes where you're not training that night, and then you go and you have cake at we like to go to some place called Pizzarella, so we have pizza, pizza, cake, some kind of dessert, and then the next night you celebrate with another group of friends or family, and before you know it, man, you're just eating and eating and eating and not training, and before you know it, I'm like, man, I'm starting to look like I'm pregnant.
Yeah,
and start looking. I started looking through my closet. I'm like, nah, I can't wear that. That's got stripes. It's going to make me look a little weird, or the clothes not fitting right. I was asking my wife the other day. I was like, does this shirt look like it shrank? Is something wrong with it? And I was like, no, it's just excuses of, it's either you go buy fat clothes or you realize that your wardrobe's speaking to you to change your ways.
You didn't ask your wife if those jeans made your butt look fat, did you?
No. I had a polo shirt, and it was like, I was like, are the sleeves riding up? It's like this it looks like a woman's shirt, like they're shrinking. What's wrong with these cheap shirts? But and I mentioned that to my brother-in-law. My sister-in-law goes, maybe you're just getting fat. And I was like, that's like, could be it.
It's so funny. I have to say this. Years ago, I went to my doctor for just a regular checkup, and my doctor looked at the chart and he said, "John, you've gained about 15 pounds since I saw you, in maybe like the last 6 months." And I said, "Yeah." I said, as you get older, your metabolism changes, and I guess I'm just going to get fat." And he looked at me and he said, "John, your metabolism doesn't change. You're eating more and you're exercising less. You need to eat less and exercise more."
He's right.
I love.
There's no excuse. I was just watching a video of a 73-year-old guy that is a CrossFitter, man, and I wish I looked like that dude. And it's just, you have to train. You have to, you have to listen to your body. It's good to be healthy. And in fact, I have my checkup a couple of weeks from now. So, maybe that will help give me a more positive light.
Well, you can report back then.
Absolutely.
Not going to argue with you.
And if I fail and I try again, right? That's what we do.
That's exactly right.
So I think it's time to end this pony, right? And thanks for listening, and we'll be back again with another episode 16 coming up.
For listening to A Swift Kick in the Ass podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's content, and we ask you to please leave us a review in iTunes. Also, head over to aswiftkickintheass.com to get a free copy of the Simple Spending Tool.